46 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Sunday Live here at Citizen Television. We'll continue our conversation here live in the studios with Archbishop Jackson Olisapete of the Anglican Church of Kenya. Archbishop, let me ask you this real quick. Sunday prayer rallies have become the norm. There's nothing wrong with prayers. There's nothing wrong with prayers on Sunday. But maybe you should leave that to the church. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, as you said, prayers is what we call for every time. We need to communicate with our Creator. We need to speak to God. At home, in the church, in the countryside, prayer is essential. But I think if it is prayers, let us keep it in the confine of the church service, and let us not add other things on the sides. Because if we see a prayer rally that turns political rally, then it defeats the original. And that's why even before the elections, we were still cautioning the use of the pulpit, that prayer hour, which translates immediately into a political scenario. So we will still urge all of us that let us be prayerful people, but let us also make the prayer hour so that it's not mixed with other things. That would be my advice.
Absolutely.
But Archbishop, it seems that the churches aren't listening because, you were here 2 years ago, you took issue with this heightened participation of politicians in churches and said no politicians at the pulpit. You also said there was a collapse of boundaries. Here we are 2 years later, we're still talking about it. What should they do to deal with this definitively?
One of the hardest things to deal with is to define the church, as one body that agrees in everything. Because, the church is made up of many segments. And the Bible tells us so, that we are members of one body, but different members, and we have different functionalities. So, to say as one church leader, what I said, may not have been taken by another church leader in the same view as I took it myself. And sometimes we look at individual churches, deal with their tradition differently from others. And I think the problem we are facing is that each Christian family is dealing with the matters according to their tradition, which I don't want to criticize one tradition against the other. But I think we need to have a common ground that let us restrict the worship hour to be the worship hour, and we dedicate all our lives to our connection with God so that it is praising Him, adoring Him, praying Him, and not mixed with other things, so that is distinctively our prayer session. So that when we are dealing with other things, then we can introduce those other things in a different manner and in a different setup, so that we don't have a mixture, because this mixture collapses boundaries, and when these boundaries are collapsed, then we don't know where are we at each given time.
Should we switch gears here, Archbishop, and talk about a very controversial ruling the other day by the Supreme Court on LGBTQ? What does the Anglicans Church stand on this?
I think I've already gone public. Before the ruling, the Church of England recently, on the 9th of February, in their General Synod, accepted to bless civil marriages that are gay in the church. And I came out and I made a public pronouncement and I made a statement against that ruling. And I thank you, citizen, for, airing that and letting Kenyans know the position of the Anglican Church. We still hold that position as homosexuality, by definition, in church language, is sin. And one of the questions I asked, because after they made that, the Church of England accepted, I went to Ghana to attend the Anglican Consultative Council, the top decision-making body of the Anglican Church, where the Archbishop of Canterbury was present. And I put this question before his eyes, and I asked, has the Church of England now lifted homosexuality from the list of sins that the Bible calls sin? And he said, no, it is still sin. Then I said, why bless it in the church? Then he said, we are blessing people, not the sin. Then I asked, we do bless people in the context of where they are and what they are doing. If I bless you in the context of your business, I bless you and your business. I bless you in your farming context. I bless you in your farm. So if you bring somebody in the context of a homosexuality, which you call sin and bless it to that, are you not then blessing him and the same? But the next question I ask, doesn't then blessing in the church means approval? And he was not able to answer. Then I ask, in whose name then are we going to bless? In the name of the very God that called it sin? So the position of the Anglican Church of Kenya has deviated from the position of the Church of England and the Episcopal Church in North America, and the Church of Canada, and many of those Western churches that have already embraced it and made it part of their church life and practice. And that is why I was raising the question, have we made it a practice, and the norm and the tradition of the church? And they are still struggling with it. So the Anglican Church of Kenya said, we are not going to go that route. We are not going to pursue that. But little did I know that after I learned from Ghana, with that big international debate, the judges of our Supreme Court accept that they should be registered as an NGO in Kenya. We don't have any problem with registering any organization. But the question I was asking, any association, when you register, they must produce what they call articles of association. What made them associate? What makes them come together? What is the agenda for that company or organization? It is a demand. And if by definition of what we know from the abbreviation of LGBTQ, they are now adding many other things. If by what we know, the abbreviation stands for lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, and the Q is queer. If by that definition, it speaks of the character and the practice of what defines them, because we all know what defines lesbianism. We all know what defines gayism. We all know what defines transgender. And now when we register without scrutinizing why they associate, then we are asking ourselves then, are we going to register any other group that we know they are going to do something that is not right in the eyes of society? Because the Constitution of Kenya, in the Penal Code, Article 162, 163, and 165 all criminalizes homosexuality. So if it is still criminal in the eyes of the laws of Kenya, then why register an organization whose abbreviations say they are defined by that which is criminal? Those are the simple questions I'm asking myself, and I'm asking our judicial system, why are we doing it? And the problem now is, what we have seen in the West, they will anchor themselves in the law so that when they are now recognized as an association, the next fight will be remove then the criminality in what we do, because we are allowed to associate. Then the next one will be, we don't want to be discriminated, and they will invoke the clauses in the Constitution that do not discriminate. And they will not come to the church and say, you have to be ordained or consecrated as a bishop, because if you don't, you are discriminating against me. And we can see that progression coming. And that's a journey. And that's why we are saying as a church, before it reaches us, we have to say what the judges have done has to be reversed by whichever means. And I want to call the people of faith and the Christian family and all of us to stand up and say no to this, because it will derode into, it will eat up into the gains you have always made in bringing a morally society that is based on values. And those values are the ones that are being eroded. When I look at this whole agenda, it's not a narrow agenda, it's a big agenda. And it's an agenda on attack on humanity. And humanity, we only have two lines of defense as humanity. One is the family, and this is an attack on family. Because with a gay marriage, there'll be no procreation, there'll be no children to be born. It is against biological, arrangement, how God created us. Because biologically we have been created, it is between a male and a female that procreation happens and children are born. So it's an attack on humanity, an attack on the family. The next line of defense that every society has, it's its norms, its cultures, its belief system. And this one is attacking directly our norms, our belief systems, whatever we believe in. And if you go back to our African cultures, we have our norms and our do's and don'ts. And if there is nothing, if there is anything that humanity cannot handle, it's absolute freedom. That's why you have laws to regulate us. That's why you have the constitution in Kenya. That's why our church has a constitution so that the church is protected for me as a leader if I go haywire. That's why we have the 10 commandments in the Bible to show us the parameters in which we are to govern and guide ourselves, because without those, then we become like animals. This agenda is attacking that defense line so that there will be no opportunity for us to have anything we believe in, any culture, any norm that govern us and direct us. And when they attack that in the name of human rights and individual freedoms, and I ask the question, doesn't those have limitations? And to what extent do my rights as an individual have limitations on what even I can do to myself? Because that's why we still say suicide is also a crime. If I become suicidal, I have to be, taken to be protected from myself, because I cannot be free to harm myself and harm my neighbors and harm anybody else. So anything that, borders on attacking the defense line of what we call society, that's why we are fighting as a church. And they are not going to rest there. They are beginning to introduce a different language now called gender neutral. Mm-hmm. It's the same proposition. The gender neutral language is to have a Bible without any reference to any gender. So I ask the question, what will happen to the doctrine of the Trinity, where we believe in God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? How are we going to refer to the Father? How are we going to refer to the Son? They have a male, attachment to it. The Bible is full of person stories. The story of Abraham, what are we going to call Abraham? The story of Esther, what are we going to call Esther? The story of Moses, what are we going to call Moses? And I was in America where the same proposition was brought to the Episcopal Church in America, and they removed the male part in their Book of Common Prayer, and the same proponent said, we are not going to stop here. We want to achieve a church without a Bible. And this is the attack on our faith, fundamentals of our faith. How do you remove the Bible from the church? How do you remove norms from us as Africans? How do we remove, a constitution from a country like Kenya so that we have no boundaries, we have no guidelines? And therefore, what I see in this debate is a big agenda attacking humanity to make humanity to look, defenseless. No belief, no faith, nothing, no law, because I am right to do what I want to do. I was reading a book recently called How to Lose a Country. And the writer, a lady, Turkish lady, Muslim by background, raised in America, wrote this book, How to Lose a Country. And she said, you don't lose a country through external aggression, like now what is happening between Russia and Ukraine. People will defend themselves, and there will be a remnant that will, carry on that nation. Even through civil war, you can't completely and entirely lose a country. But she said you lose a country when the country allows itself to develop a narrative of introducing language that normalize wrongdoing and normalize evil and normalize anything that is not right, to make it normal, so that you remove shame and you remove guilt. If you remove shame and guilt in humanity, we can become like any other animal. We can behave, crudely. So she says, when you attack that, you attack the soul of the person, the soul of the nation. And I see this agenda being introduced is to remove anything shame in what is unnatural, anything shame that and guilt that in what we are told is not right, so that we are free to do anything, and we lose our soul, and we can lose our countries, we can lose our families, and we can lose everything we have.
Archbishop, who do you feel is really behind this? Because what I hear you saying is the ruling is indicative of the society being pushed in a direction it doesn't want to go, our society. So who do you think is behind this?
Recently, I was, we were in a meeting with religious leaders. We said, there are people who are saying we are now bringing a language that is going to endanger people who are LGBTQ. That's not our role, and that's not our agenda. Our agenda is to love them. Our agenda is to embrace them. Our agenda is to correct them. Our agenda is to rehabilitate them and give them opportunity to know God and to be forgiven and be brought back to society. Rehabilitation and restoration is our agenda. But we want to face head-on whoever are the proponents. And we can see a hand beyond, the people who have been recruited into it, because this is a recruiting game. People are being recruited into it. There's a lot of money play to recruit people into it.
Which hand do you think this is?
I don't know which hand, but it must be a hand backed by foreign powers, because if you see, now we are being told for you to qualify for this aid or for that aid, you must embrace it. You must agree that they have a right, they can operate wherever they wish and whatever they want to do. So why have government put it as a priority? Especially Western government, why have they put it as a priority that they want to push the democracy agenda into this debate? They want to push the development agenda into this debate. If they are genuinely not behind it, then why are they pushing that we can only, receive this or receive that, or protect your democracy by embracing this or that? And I think we must ask ourselves why is it attached to development programs? Why is it attached to, and who is attaching them? And I can see, I don't know exactly whoever is the initiator, but I see the Western influence in it. And this is not African, it's not part of our society, and I'm just urging our leaders and ourselves and the African continent and other continents that are saying this is not right, to rise up and say we cannot agree to lose the soul of our nation, the soul of ourselves, because when the attack line are on that which protect and preserve humanity, and I said it's a family, and our, our norms and our do's and our don'ts that we have always crafted for ourselves, and our belief system, then we will open ourselves to be naked. I know there are proponents who are saying the only way to deal with climate change is to reduce human population. Could be this is part of the agenda. Because, if you attack on any ability for humanity to procreate, you're attacking, human population. And therefore, I'm just worried that, it could be bigger than what we think. And we must ask ourselves, how then do we guard ourselves from these things that we know it will self-destroy and lead us to self-destruction?
Archbishop, you mentioned Africa behaving like a collective when pushing up against some of these ideologies. On the same-sex marriage issue, do you see the Anglican Church in Africa breaking away, for instance, from the Mother Church of England?
We have already, and soon I'm going to meet my House of Bishops.
Yeah.
We are in consultation with the rest of the African heads of provinces in Africa. We will be having a meeting with the GAFCON family, which is a global future conference for the Anglican Church, which are saying no, and we want to completely preach the Bible as it is and preserve the Bible so that we don't introduce this gender-neutral thing into it. And in May, we are going to have a meeting in Cairo of the Global South, which now brings together Africa, Latin America, Asia, and the Pacific to have the same discussion. And I think what we have already agreed and pronounced is that England is no longer not going to be the lead of the Anglican Communion. And we are going to push that agenda, that we are going to get another primate among us, maybe on a rotational basis, who is going to be the chair of what we call our communion, the communion that believe in orthodox teaching of the Bible.
Okay. Archbishop Jackson Olisapit, fascinating conversation. We'll have to keep talking about it, huh? Thank you so much for your time and your input.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Archbishop Jackson Olisapit of the Anglican Church of Kenya there. What are your thoughts? Keep tweeting at Kwenagaja.
At Vicky Rubadiri.
At Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag is Sunday Live. Sunday Live takes a break. We'll be back. We still have sports next. Man U fans, switch off the TV now.